noticed how, like, a single devastating moment of betrayal in your childhood doesn't just hurt your feelings, but it actually physically rewires the entire architecture of your brain?
Oh, absolutely. It
Yeah.
completely alters your baseline.
Right. Like a lie told to you at age 8 can literally calcify your trust centers so severely that 30 years later, you are building an entire criminal empire just to ensure no one can ever pull the rug out from under you again.
It is dark. It's fascinating.
It is exactly the kind of psychological wreckage we are unpacking today. But before we get into the absolute trauma of it all, I have to say it. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, happy Monday, happy Tuesday, literally happy good whenever.
We see you, babes.
Yes. Thank you for being here. Let me just tell you, the Snark Squad is in for an absolute treat today because we switched it up tonight, and the spicy pineapple margaritas are officially back on deck.
They are poured, they are dangerously potent, and they are currently sweating on the table between us.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I feel like I need to properly evaluate this beverage, though. Like, does pineapple truly belong in a cocktail? Or is it just a tropical distraction to mask the fact that we're drinking pure, unadulterated chaos?
Oh my gosh, stop it right now. It absolutely belongs.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
No, I am completely, genuinely, emotionally obsessed with these margaritas. There's just something about a spicy drink that suddenly feels, I don't know, so elite, you know?
Elite is one word for it.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, the moment that Tajin hits your lips, it's not just a beverage anymore. It is a full lifestyle change. It is a total personality reset.
It's certainly a bold choice. I will say, acting as the self-appointed, highly pretentious cocktail critic for this exact moment, there is actual science behind why you feel that way.
Wait, really? Science?
Yeah, the acidity of the pineapple actually balances the capsaicin in the jalapeno. Capsaicin tricks your brain's pain receptors into thinking you are, like, actually in physical danger.
Oh my gosh, my brain thinks I'm dying.
Essentially, yes, which triggers a massive release of endorphins and dopamine to cope with the pain. So you are essentially experiencing a mild, cocktail-induced runner's high right now.
I knew it. I knew it was science.
But let's be real. One sip of this, and you instantly transform into a vacation baddie who makes highly questionable financial decisions.
Exactly. One sip, and I'm suddenly looking at flights to Tulum, debating if I can pull off a crochet matching set, and, like, considering buying a boat. I feel so powerful.
Please do not buy a boat.
I won't. But honestly, we needed these drinks tonight because we had such a wildly busy weekend. And babes, if you disappeared for a minute, you promise you are back.
We are back, we are grounded, and we are so ready for the mess. Because we survived the weekend, barely.
Barely.
Well, we absolutely have to talk about the lunch.
Yes. Oh my gosh, we have to tell the Snark Squad. My niece invited both of us out to lunch this weekend, and yes, everybody ate vegetarian because we are actively manifesting our slim, thick eras.
The kale salads were aggressively green.
So green. But let me tell you, spending an hour with a modern-day high schooler, I was spinning out.
It was an anthropological study in modern anxiety.
The sheer emotional chaos of teenagers right now is actually unparalleled.
The way they process social media drama, it's just, I mean, the intensely complicated friend group politics. It's not just gossip anymore.
No, it's like a war room.
It is like navigating a high-stakes geopolitical crisis.
Right.
But it's entirely based on whose Instagram story, who purposely left someone off a private TikTok, and who viewed a Snapchat map at the wrong time.
The Snapchat maps, that is so toxic.
I was sitting there eating my salad, analyzing the power dynamics like a terrified diplomat.
It is so intense. They are operating at a baseline frequency that I could never, ever sustain.
Never.
But at the same time, we have to discuss how insanely motivated she is. Like, right in the middle of breaking down this massive group chat betrayal, she casually drops that she is the president of the drama club.
And running the debate club.
Yes. She is involved in literally everything. She is building a whole empire before she even has a driver's license.
It's terrifying, honestly.
Honestly, we stan our future queen. I am just so impressed and fiercely protective of her. Like, protect her at all costs.
I am low-key intimidated by teenagers now. Like, when I was that age, my biggest concern was making sure my MySpace top 8 didn't cause a civil war in my homeroom.
Oh my gosh, the top 8 was brutal, though.
It was. But these kids are out here curating multi-platform personal brands, negotiating club budgets, and surviving digital warfare on 5 different apps simultaneously.
It's exhausting just hearing about it.
The panopticon of social media means they are constantly being perceived, cataloged, and judged.
Which is so much pressure. But speaking of digital warfare, you guys, we both went down a massive TikTok research spiral before recording today.
He did, and it was a mistake.
It really was. Because, babes, we need to talk about AI.
We really do. Because I started treating this conversation like a full-blown conspiracy documentary, and I am not okay.
I am having an existential crisis just thinking about it.
We are looking at a fundamental shift in how humanity operates.
Right. Like, is AI eventually taking everyone's jobs? I saw this one video breaking down how even highly sterilized medical fields are at risk.
Oh, the dentistry one.
Yes. Could dentistry become automated? Like, am I going to sit in a chair and have a robot arm do a root canal on me?
I mean, theoretically.
I am losing my sense of purpose just thinking about the absolute dystopian nightmare of it all. Is society getting way too dependent on technology?
Well, let's unpack the actual mechanism of what's happening. The threat isn't necessarily a humanoid robot holding a drill.
Okay, thank goodness.
The structural dependency is about cognitive labor. Large language models and AI systems are incredibly proficient at pattern recognition. So AI might not physically pull the tooth,
Right.
but it can diagnose a panoramic X-ray with a higher accuracy rate than a human dentist by cross-referencing millions of historical dental records in 3 seconds.
That is genuinely terrifying.
The real question isn't if it will automate the physical labor. It's whether we will willingly surrender our cognitive autonomy because the machine simply processes the data faster.
I hate this.
And yes, people are already asking if creative fields, including podcasts, could become entirely AI-generated.
Oh my gosh, no, absolutely not. I refuse to accept that reality. Listen, AI can take dentistry, but babes, it is not taking the podcast.
Yeah.
An algorithm could never replicate this specific level of emotional damage and chaotic energy.
Never.
A data model could never spiral about a spicy margarita and reality TV trauma the way we do.
I completely agree. An AI can synthesize facts, but it lacks the capacity for aesthetic suffering, irrational bias, and the sheer unhinged snark required to dissect television at this level.
Exactly.
The human experience is messy, and that messiness is our ultimate defense against the machines. Which brings us beautifully to the actual reason we are here today.
Yes, let's get into it, because Euphoria honestly feels like every single human emotion turned all the way up to 100.
It's exhausting in the best way.
It is just constant teen chaos. Overdramatic friendships, incredibly toxic relationships, massive emotional spirals, and so much aesthetic suffering. It is a masterpiece of absolute mess.
It is a beautifully lit, highly stylized anxiety attack.
Glitter tears.
Exactly. The cinematography alone is gorgeous, but it's capturing the most soul-crushing despair.
It really is.
Watching this show is like being analyzed by a therapist who has a really strong Wi-Fi connection, brilliant insights, but absolutely zero professional boundaries.
Oh my gosh.
They see every toxic trait humanity have to offer and just put it on premium cable for our entertainment.
I am just so deeply emotionally invested in everyone's survival at this point. Like, we need to debate later which of these characters would absolutely survive adulthood and which character would emotionally combust first.
I have my spreadsheets ready.
Because after watching this week's mess, I honestly don't know if any of them are making it out alive.
The survival rate is looking statistically improbable. The collateral damage this week was astounding. We need to unpack all of it, scene by scene.
We are avid fans, and we are absolutely dying to tell you what happened. This session was cinematic, it was terrifying, it was everything.
Let's start right at the beginning.
Yes, because the recap has to begin with that incredible, gorgeous 1970s cold open.
It was a massive tonal shift for the series, but brilliantly executed. The show leaned fully into this vintage, grainy 1970s aesthetic to give us the origin story of Alamo.
And the casting here was phenomenal. We get a young Alamo and his mother, who is credited simply as Mama Brown.
Played by the guest starring Danielle Deadwyler.
Oh my gosh, she was incredible. The beaded braids, the oversized sunglasses, the glamour.
But underneath it all, the sheer calculating coldness of her character.
Exactly. Rue is doing this omniscient voiceover narration, and she tells us right off the bat that Mama Brown is the coldest female Alamo ever knew.
And we see exactly why. She introduces young Alamo to this man, Preston.
And Preston is such a tragic, compelling figure. He's a genuinely kind man, but he has these terrible chemical plant burn scars all over his face from an accident at work.
At first, young Alamo is terrified of him. The scarring is severe and jarring for a child.
But Preston wins him over with the simplest, most gentle gesture. He just kneels down and hands the kid a Hershey bar.
It's such a human moment.
It broke my heart. Preston is so incredibly sweet to him. He buys Alamo ice cream, he takes him to church where the choir is singing Let My People Go, and he genuinely wants to be a father figure to this boy.
And Preston tells Mama Brown that he's getting a massive financial settlement from the chemical company because of the workplace accident.
Right, so as a viewer, you're watching this thinking, okay, Mama Brown is just doing whatever it takes to survive. She's securing a bag to get hot meals and shoes that fit for her son.
You're lured into this false sense of security, the settlement comes through, and suddenly they're living the absolute dream.
The visual storytelling here is striking. Mama Brown is suddenly dripping in Cartier jewels.
They move into this spectacular, newly furnished apartment. Preston is promising to send Alamo to a nice private school to learn French.
They take this beautiful Labor Day beach vacation, which Rue narrates as the happiest time in Alamo's entire life.
The sun is shining, the waves are crashing, and Preston even asks for Alamo's blessing to marry his mother.
And you just know the other shoe is going to drop.
Oh, the anxiety was palpable.
Wait, you feel it building in your chest? Because they come back from this perfect family vacation, they put the key in the door of their swanky new apartment, and it is completely, entirely empty.
Robbed blind.
Every stick of furniture, every jewel, everything is gone.
Preston is absolutely devastated. He's on his knees in this empty living room, sobbing, begging Mama Brown to let him fix it, pleading with her to stay.
And she is entirely detached. She doesn't shed a single tear.
She immediately packs up Alamo, tells him Preston is bad luck, and they just walk out, leaving this broken, weeping man behind on the floor.
Okay, but we have to unpack this betrayal because it gets so much worse.
It always does.
Mama Brown takes Alamo to another city, to a completely different apartment with a different man, and when they walk in, all of their stolen stuff is sitting right there.
It's sickening.
Alamo's lunchbox, his cowboy figurines, the furniture. The new guy calls her baby, and they are literally standing there joking about how the hired goons weren't careful enough when they were moving her stuff out of Preston's place.
It's chilling. When young Alamo realizes what has happened, he gives her this horrified, betrayed look.
And she just stares down at her own son and says, completely deadpan, "You're not the one who had to kiss his ugly face."
Brutal.
I was yelling at my screen. It is the ultimate betrayal. This is giving me the most brutal reality TV blindside I have ever seen, but with real human lives.
Like a legendary Survivor blindside,
Okay.
where someone plays a hidden immunity idol and backstabs their closest ally.
Yes. Or a classic Housewives grift where the entire marriage was a scam for the cameras. But this is a child's actual formative reality. This single event completely calcified Alamo's entire personality.
Exactly. Let's look at the psychological mechanics of what just happened to this child.
Please analyze this for me.
In developmental psychology, this is a catastrophic rupture of attachment. The primary caregiver, the person who is supposed to be the child's absolute safe harbor, just demonstrated that love is an illusion. Security is a trap, and vulnerability will absolutely lead to your destruction.
That is so heavy.
Rue's narration points out that the real mark in this long con wasn't even Preston, it was Alamo. Preston just lost money. Alamo lost his fundamental ability to trust human connection.
And we see the immediate aftermath. Young Alamo is lying on his bed, pulling a gun from a leather holster, and he vows to himself that for as long as he lived, never again would a bitch outsmart him.
That line is the thesis statement for his entire existence.
It really is.
It directly connects this childhood trauma to his raging misogyny and his deep-seated paranoia in the present timeline. He took the profound betrayal of his mother and projected it onto the entire female gender.
Which makes so much sense. Every interaction he has with women is tainted by this.
He views all women as inherently deceptive, capable of the kind of devastating long con his mother pulled.
So he builds fortresses.
Exactly. He buries his assets, he controls every variable, and it completely informs his absolute lack of mercy toward the women currently trapped in his orbit.
He cannot afford to show grace.
Because in his mind, grace is what got Preston left weeping in an empty apartment.
Which brings us slamming right back into the brutal reality of the present day, to the girl currently buried up to her neck in the dirt in his yard, Rue.
Yes. We left Rue last week in the most precarious position possible. She's a floating head in the dirt.
And Alamo is standing over her with a wooden polo mallet, threatening to swing it and literally knock her head off like a polo ball.
It's incredibly stressful television.
My anxiety was through the roof. The sheer visceral terror of that polo mallet swinging back and forth. Rue is desperately trying to survive, so what does she do? She gives up Faye.
She confesses that Faye was the getaway driver the night Alamo's safe was robbed by Harley and Wayne.
She promises Alamo that she can get the money back if he just lets her out of the ground.
Rue is operating purely on primal survival instinct. Morality is a luxury she cannot afford when a mallet is inches from her skull.
So true.
So Alamo's guys dig her up, and she has to make this high-stakes phone call to Faye to set the trap.
And the tonal whiplash of the show is incredible because we go from the terrifying life or death threat of decapitation in a desert yard straight into the absolute grotesque absurdity of Faye's current living situation.
It is so deeply chaotic.
It is so gross. Faye is taking this deathly serious phone call from the toilet.
Because, remember, the DEA busted Rue and replaced all the stolen drugs with laxative-laced fakes.
And Faye has been happily sampling the stash. It is so disgusting.
It really highlights the pathetic, unglamorous reality of addiction. The show strips away the neon lights and leaves you with a girl sick on a toilet.
But then Faye starts talking to Rue about her romance with Wayne, and it is horrifying. She is hesitant to help Rue rob Wayne because she believes she and Wayne are earnestly in love.
In love with Wayne. It's absurd.
In love. I am sorry, but Wayne is a literal white supremacist. Faye casually mentions to Rue that he gave her a swastika tramp stamp.
A swastika.
A swastika. And she's not even sure if she's a Nazi now. She just went along with it because she was high.
The logic is flawless.
And he is actively harassing her to stop doing drugs and start taking prenatal vitamins so she can carry his fair-skinned babies. It is the most grotesque, deeply uncomfortable, terrifying romance I have ever witnessed on television.
It is intensely disturbing, but I have to say, the creator is laying these terrible person stereotypes on incredibly thick.
Like almost too thick.
It borders on parody. Wayne comes into the bathroom and casually sets his gun down on a copy of the book Helter Skelter.
Oh my gosh, I missed that.
It's almost comical how aggressively they are telegraphing his villainy. It's like a caricature of a white supremacist meth head assembled by an algorithm.
It is so much. It's sensory overload. But Rue knows exactly how to manipulate Faye to get what she wants.
She weaponizes the memory of Fez.
She guilt trips Faye so hard, reminding her that Fez would have helped, that Fez literally went to prison to protect her after her last junkie boyfriend messed everything up.
And it works. The guilt breaks Faye down.
Faye agrees to sneak into the other room, take a picture of the physical key to Laurie's safe, and put a quarter next to it for scale.
Which brings us to the technological mechanics of this entire heist plot.
Yes, please explain this to me.
The plan is to take this blurry iPhone picture of a key next to a quarter, send it to Alamo, and his crew is going to use a 3D printer to create a functional duplicate key to a cartel boss's high-security safe.
Okay, I have to push back on this because it is driving me absolutely crazy. Is modern crime really this terrifyingly simple?
Well, no.
Can you actually just 3D print a cartel safe key from an iPhone picture taken in a dirty bathroom? It's giving Ocean's 11, but make it absolute meth head chaos.
That's a great description.
Like, where are the laser grids? Where is the acrobatics? How does a piece of plastic open a cartel vault?
It's a very fair question, and it certainly strains credulity if you know anything about locksmithing. Let's break down the mechanics.
Break it down.
Yes, modern smartphone cameras have excellent macro lenses and LiDAR sensors that can capture high-resolution depth profiles. But the issue is the physical reality of the lock.
Right.
A high-security safe key has complex bitting, which are the cuts on the blade, and warding, the grooves that allow it to bypass the internal security pins.
Sounds complicated.
Even if you get the geometry perfectly right from a photo, a 3D printed plastic resin copy likely lacks the tensile torque strength required to turn a heavy internal locking mechanism.
So it would just break.
9 times out of 10, that plastic key is going to snap off inside the lock, leaving you with a jammed safe and a very angry cartel boss.
Exactly.
But for the sake of narrative momentum, we have to suspend our disbelief and accept that Alamo's crew has some incredibly high-end, industrial-grade, carbon fiber 3D printing capabilities.
I guess we just have to roll with it. Because while that plastic key is getting printed, Alamo sets up this massive, incredibly tense summit with Laurie at his house.
And the tension in this scene is so thick you could cut it with a knife.
It really is. You have Laurie and her crew pulling up to Alamo's heavily fortified compound. And the visual contrast is striking.
Alamo is surrounded by this curated strip club mogul glamour. The lighting is moody, the furniture is expensive, the guards are in suits.
And Laurie's crew rolls up looking like they just grabbed whatever was on clearance at a discount store.
Yes, the fashion disrespect is so real.
Someone on the Reddit live thread, I think it was user or local indie girl, said, Laurie's outfit at Alamo's.
Yeah,
"Oh, that sweatshirt." And someone else replied that she always looks like she just put on some absolute nonsense from TJ Maxx.
It is so true.
But do not let the casual athleisure fool you, because Laurie is terrifying.
She is arguably the most dangerous person in the room, precisely because of her cold, calculating detachment.
She doesn't need a suit to project power.
She sits down and pitches this massive, incredibly risky business deal to Alamo. She knows he runs this sham company called Gold Rush Medical Services.
The Mexicali plastic surgery ambulances, we haven't talked about those in a minute.
Exactly. It's a brilliant front. He uses these ambulances, which have medical exceptions and flashing lights, to sail through border customs without being searched.
So smart.
He takes his girls across the border for cheap plastic surgery and dental work. Laurie wants to utilize that exact infrastructure.
For what?
She wants him to use one of his ambulances to smuggle 80 kilos of fentanyl across the U.S.-Mexico border.
80 kilos. That is literally over 170 pounds of pure fentanyl. That is enough to wipe out a small country.
A massive quantity.
And Laurie says they have to do it immediately for one last big job because the border is closing. And we're just impartially noting the plot point that the border is initiating new lockdown protocols, which creates a massive, strict logistical deadline for this smuggling route.
The ticking clock is on. The leverage she uses to force this deal is what backs Alamo into a corner.
She blackmails him.
She tells him if he agrees to run the fentanyl, he gets the entire contents of his stolen safe back. If he refuses, she sends whatever highly incriminating evidence was in that safe directly to the FBI.
It's absolute textbook blackmail.
And Alamo is trapped, but he does not go down quietly.
No, he doesn't. He agrees to the deal, but he pulls Laurie close, looks her dead in the eye, and drops this horrifying threat.
It was chilly.
He tells her if she crosses him, he will come down on her, like Hiroshima, Nagasaki. The absolute visceral venom in his voice. He meant every single word.
And the incredible irony of this entire high-stakes standoff is that Rue is standing quietly in the corner, recording the whole thing on her phone for the DEA.
She captures the absolute jackpot audio.
The fentanyl plot, the ambulance logistics, the blackmail, the terroristic threats, all of it on tape.
Rue takes this recording straight to her DEA handlers under the bridge, and they are thrilled. They're practically jumping for joy.
They tell her if everything goes to plan, Alamo and Laurie will spend the rest of their natural lives behind bars.
And because Rue kept her word and delivered the tape, the U.S. attorney will look favorably on her case. The agent literally looks at her and says, "You did good, kid."
A classic line.
And I celebrated. Rue smiled, a real, genuine smile. She closed her eyes and looked up like she was thanking God. It is her first real win in a long, long time.
It is a profound moment of emotional relief for her. The audience feels that weight lift. But if we analyze the structural reality of her situation, this is a massive, incredibly dangerous trap.
Wait, what do you mean? It's a win. She got the tape.
It's the illusion of a win. Let's look at the mechanics of the criminal justice system in this scenario. You have to understand the difference between investigators and prosecutors.
Okay, lay on me.
The DEA agents are investigators. They want to make the bust. But they have absolutely zero legal authority to grant immunity. Only the U.S. attorney, the prosecutor, can do that.
So what did they mean?
So when the agent says the attorney will look favorably on her, that is non-binding cop speak. It means nothing on paper.
Oh my gosh, so they are just using her.
They're using her as highly expendable human capital. And more importantly, the DEA isn't providing her with physical protection right now.
They just sent her back out there.
She has to survive the cartel operation first. Alamo already suspects her. We saw it earlier when he told Laurie he wouldn't let Rue drive the ambulance because he has people he trusts more.
Oh, that's right.
Alamo knows there is a leak. Rue is entirely exposed, walking back into a cartel compound with a target on her back.
The legal promise means absolutely nothing if she is dead in the desert. That makes me sick to my stomach.
It's a bleak reality.
While Rue is desperately trying to claw her way out of this violent underworld, the people she loves are willfully, almost eagerly trapping themselves in these gilded cages.
Which perfectly transitions us to the emotional devastation of Jules' penthouse.
This scene was a masterclass in dissecting toxic interpersonal dynamics and cognitive dissonance.
Rue goes to visit Jules, who is currently living in this massive, sterile, ultra-modern loft provided by Ellis, the married man she is seeing.
Rue walks into this gorgeous apartment, and she drops this entirely new, wildly out-of-character persona on us.
She starts talking about wanting a picket fence.
Yes. She says she is craving good old-fashioned American problems. She wants to get married, she wants a wife, she wants to have kids and worry about a mortgage. She looks at Jules and says, I have to live for something greater than myself.
And Jules finds the entire concept deeply ridiculous. She laughs in Rue's face.
She points out that Rue is barely sober, calling this sudden desire for domesticity a complete fantasy.
Which, if we analyze it, is highly hypocritical given Jules' current living situation.
It is the ultimate hypocrisy, because Rue does not hold back. She looks around that pristine, empty apartment, looks back at Jules, and completely dismantles her life.
It was a verbal execution.
Rue tells her that Jules is the one living a pathetic fantasy. She calls Jules a toy, kept locked in a little penthouse room for Ellis to play with whenever he gets bored of his real life.
She points out the harsh reality. Ellis is a married man with a family, and he will never, ever leave his wife for a girl he keeps hidden in a loft.
I was spinning out over the emotional damage of this conversation. Jules is acting like a classic reality TV sugar baby who is utterly, completely delusional.
The cognitive dissonance is staggering.
You know the type? The girl who thinks she is the one magical exception to the rule. She truly believes the wealthy married man is actually going to leave his wife and kids for her.
But when Ruth strips away that delusion and calls her out, pointing out that her only actual role in life right now is to sit at home and paint until Ellis comes over to sleep with her, Jules completely snaps.
The physical escalation of the scene was shocking.
When the ego cannot handle the truth, it resorts to violence.
Jules' open hand slaps Rue across the face. Hard. It was the slap heard around the penthouse.
It was a brutal sound.
It knocks Rue completely off balance, sending her crashing backward into this giant canvas Jules was painting, and they both go tumbling to the floor.
And the absolute chilling coldness when Jules looks down at her ex-girlfriend on the ground and screams, Ellis is going to be here in 45 minutes, so I suggest you get the F out of my painting.
It was a brutal punctuation mark on whatever remained of their relationship.
Jules lashed out violently because the cognitive dissonance became too much to bear. She knows Rue is entirely right.
Of course she knows.
The fantasy she has built with Ellis is incredibly fragile, and Rue threatened it with undeniable truth. The Reddit live threads were absolutely ablaze during this scene.
What were they saying?
A user named ClassAct7 said, if it's Hunter or Sam or whatever it is, but Jules is just absolutely funning insufferable this season. And that sentiment had thousands of upvotes.
She really is insufferable. She's entirely devoid of her former personality.
It's like watching a ghost hunt her own life.
But speaking of people who are completely losing their grip on reality and making terrible choices, we have to talk about Cassie.
Cassie's arc this episode is a fascinating, deeply uncomfortable study in trauma-induced delusion and opportunism.
We find her on the set of the primetime soap opera LA Nights. She managed to secure this minor one-line role as job applicant.
And she studied that one line religiously.
She was so ready. But when she steps onto the brightly lit set to film her scene with the main actor, Dylan Reed, he delivers his scripted line and it completely breaks her brain.
He looks at her and says, "You're not the first girl to come running once the honeymoon is over."
That specific phrase acts as a severe psychological trigger.
A massive trigger.
Cassie completely dissociates in front of the entire crew. The camera pushes in on her face, and you can literally see her eyes glaze over as she leaves her body.
She gets thrown right back to the horror of her bloody wedding night.
Remembering Naz saying those exact words to her right after he cut off Nate's toe with pruning shears, she starts crying, hyperventilating, and muttering, going completely off script.
She starts trauma dumping to the actor about how Nate lied to her for 5 years, saying, "I did everything for him, and what did I get in return? A bloody nose on my wedding night?"
It's a full public psychological breakdown. The crew is frantically flipping through their scripts, completely confused.
But the actor, Dylan, intuitively senses the raw emotion and starts improvising with her.
And the showrunner, Patty Lance, played brilliantly by Sharon Stone, by the way, is watching the monitors and makes the calculated decision not to yell cut.
She finds the raw, unhinged trauma incredibly compelling.
Compelling. She thinks it's acting. It is the ultimate main character moment.
Patty and her producer pull Cassie aside at the lunch break and tell her she has the feels.
They actually compare her performance to Jane Fonda in the iconic movie Clute, a young hustler with a secret life.
They offer to rewrite the show and make Cassie a main character.
But there is a catch. Hollywood always has a catch. They issue the ultimate ultimatum.
They do a background check and find out she is doing sex work, making highly lucrative, explicit fetish content on OnlyFans.
Patty tells her she can have the primetime TV role, the fame, the glamour, but only if she deletes her OnlyFans account right then and there and leaves that world behind entirely.
And Cassie, driven purely by the desperate desire for societal validation and mainstream fame, agrees.
She deletes her entire income stream. She walks out onto the sunny Warner Brothers lot, throws her arms in the air, and screams, "Thank you, God, I'm going to be famous!"
But we cannot ignore the absolute parasite standing right next to her, Lexi.
Ah, yes. Lexi Howard, the perennial observer who constantly commodifies her sister's pain for her own advancement.
Lexi is standing there during this high-stakes lunch meeting, rolling her eyes the entire time.
As soon as Patty asks Cassie what she does for a living, Lexi immediately outs her. Before Cassie can spin it, Lexi says, "On OnlyFans."
And when Cassie tries to defend her channel as a new, empowering form of feminism, Lexi jumps in again, cutting her down by bringing up special requests.
She actively, maliciously tries to sabotage her sister in front of network executives.
But the twist is how Patty reacts. When Patty decides to keep Cassie anyway and make her storyline more risque and authentic, she turns to Lexi, who she incorrectly assumes is a protective sister trying to save Cassie from a bad path.
And she offers Lexi the job to write Cassie's new storyline, because Lexi supposedly has the insider perspective.
And Lexi immediately accepts. She doesn't even hesitate.
I have to ask you, is Lexi actually trying to save her sister from the dangers of sex work, or is she just a parasite who only succeeds by exploiting Cassie's trauma? First, she put on that devastating play in season 2 that ruined everyone's lives, and now this.
Analytically, it's a parasitic relationship masquerading as concern. Lexi views her sister's lived trauma merely as raw material for her own created portfolio.
That's so gross.
But what Cassie fails to realize in her euphoric moment of triumph on the studio lot is that by deleting her OnlyFans, she just triggered a massive legal landmine.
Yes. You noted this in your notes, and it completely blew my mind. Explain this to me.
The Reddit sleuths caught it immediately. User LSGeelCrow737 pointed out that Cassie is going to end up forced to work at the Silver Slipper strip club. Why? Because if you remember last week's episode, Cassie signed an ironclad management contract with Maddie.
Oh my gosh.
That contract gave Maddie legal control over Cassie's work, image, and revenue streams. By unilaterally deleting the account and ceasing production without Maddie's consent, Cassie just violated a legally binding agreement.
She didn't read the fine print. Cassie thinks she's escaping to Hollywood freedom, but she just handed Maddie the legal right to sue her for lost potential revenue and completely financially ruin her.
She is in breach of contract.
She traded one form of intense control for another, and the financial repercussions will be devastating.
She thinks she has left Nate in the darkness behind, but she is about to be dragged right back into the mud by a contract she signed in a moment of desperation.
And speaking of the husband she left behind, Nate Jacobs is having arguably the worst week of his entire miserable life.
Nate's storyline has completely devolved into a cyclical pattern of physical punishment.
Let's set the scene. Cassie is sitting in her apartment, and she gets this nondescript package delivered.
She opens the cardboard box, and it is horrifying.
It contains a severed ring finger with Nate's wedding band still on it, a severed toe, and a note screaming in all caps, "Answer the phone."
It's a macabre, visceral escalation by Naz's cartel. They are sending a very clear message.
And the show immediately cuts to Nate, who is currently acting as the universe's punching bag.
He is standing at his stalled Sun Settlers construction site.
And he is having a full-blown, childish tantrum. He is stomping on those rare, endangered white fritillary flowers that halted his entire real estate project, screaming slurs at the actual plants.
And then right on cue, Naz's cartel goons walk up and just start beating him to a pulp. Again.
It has become a highly predictable narrative pattern.
It really has.
I was seriously wondering if Nate is just stuck in a Matrix glitch. I compared it to a video game NPC. You know when a non-playable character gets stuck walking into a wall and you just keep hitting them and they repeat the same animation?
It's giving exactly that.
Every single time we see him on screen this season, he just gets beat up by different people.
The fan community is highly critical of this narrative choice. As user Paperscurl noted on Reddit, Nate's scenes feel like Family Guy cutaway gags.
Oh, wow, that is so accurate.
Another user, Remote Nature 80166, said you might as well consider Nate getting beaten a running gag at this point. There's a strong prevailing theory that the writers don't know what to do with his character anymore.
So he is being phased out of the show entirely, The terrifying, deeply calculating psychological villain of season 1 is completely gone, replaced by a guy who just loses body parts and gets stomped on weekly.
And strips away all the tension he used to provide.
It is so bizarre to watch. But while Nate is getting stomped in the dirt, Rue is having a literal, profound come-to-Jesus moment.
This entire final sequence of the episode is a masterpiece of cinematic tension and heavy religious symbolism.
It is undoubtedly the emotional climax of the season so far. After everything with the DEA, Rue goes to a church.
She sits alone in the pews.
And in the quiet of the sanctuary, she gets a phone call. Not from her handlers, not from the cartel, but from her mother, Leslie.
The confessional.
Zendaya acts her absolute heart out in this scene. Give her the Emmy right now. Rue breaks down crying, looking up at the beautiful stained glass windows.
She tells her mom that she thinks she believes in God now.
She says, and this wrecked me, I just figured if he exists, then so does redemption. If there's redemption, then there's salvation. And I kind of need that.
It's a deeply vulnerable moment.
She pleads for forgiveness, saying she doesn't want to be permanently stuck with all the bad things she's done in her life. She just wants a chance to start over, to be clean. It is such a beautiful, incredibly raw moment.
It's a desperate, deeply human plea for absolution. The psychological weight of her actions is crushing her, and she is looking for a higher power to lift it.
But the genius of the show is that it immediately undercuts this fragile, beautiful hope with a chilling reality check from Bishop back at the strip club.
Yes, Bishop's Python parable. I had chills running down my arms.
Tell the Snark squad what happens.
Rue leaves the church and goes to the club to give Alamo the 3D printed key she got from Faye's photo. Alamo takes it, but he tells Rue that she is going to be the one to physically go in and rob Laurie's safe.
Then, his bodyguard, G, hands Rue a dead rat and tells her to feed it to Alamo's massive pet snake in the terrarium.
As she does this, Bishop stands behind her and tells this deeply unsettling story.
He says a dancer named Sweet used to own that exact python. She loved it. She cuddled with it in her bed at night. She thought it was her baby.
But then the snake suddenly stopped eating. She took it to the exotic vet, crying, thinking it was sick.
But the vet looks at her and tells her the snake isn't sick. It stopped eating because it was sizing her up.
It was intentionally fasting to prepare its stomach to eat her whole.
It's a brilliant, terrifying metaphor for Alamo's relationship with Rue.
Bishop explicitly states that Alamo loved the story because it's a reminder that you never know a mother's true intentions.
Alamo knows Rue is a rat. He is the snake.
He is creating a false sense of security, sizing her up, and waiting for the perfect moment to consume her entirely.
And then Bishop drops the ultimate devastating bomb. As Rue is leaving, he casually mentions that he visited Rue's mom, Leslie, earlier that day to tell her how well Rue is doing.
The blackmail reveal.
Exactly. It completely taints that beautiful, tear-jerking church scene. Rue's mom wasn't just calling to check in out of the goodness of her heart. She was likely calling under extreme duress.
Bishop threatened her family. Rue's one safe harbor has been breached by the cartel.
It isolates Rue entirely. The psychological walls are closing in. She has the DEA pushing her from one side, Alamo trapping her from the other, and her family is now a target.
Which leads to the final, frantic sequence of the episode.
Rue is driving away from the club in the pitch-black desert night. She is listening to her Bible audiobook on a cassette tape.
The tape starts unraveling and glitching in the player.
She is distracted, frantically fiddling with the radio, trying to fix it, and she drifts over the double yellow line into the oncoming lane. She looks up, and she almost gets hit head-on by a massive, speeding semi-truck.
The sound design here is deafening.
She swerves at the last possible microsecond, running her car violently off the road and crashing into the dirt.
The car is hissing and smoking. She stumbles out of the driver's side door, her life having literally just flashed before her eyes.
And she looks up into the desert, and a massive Joshua tree spontaneously bursts into roaring flames.
A literal burning bush.
Rue falls to her knees in the dirt, closes her eyes, and the orange flames are dancing across her face. She is in a state of absolute, pure religious ecstasy.
The symbolism is heavy-handed, but incredibly effective visually. It's a direct reference to Exodus chapter 3, where God speaks to Moses through a burning bush, calling him to lead his people out of bondage.
I am spiraling over what this actually means for the narrative. Is this actual divine intervention? Did God literally set a tree on fire in the desert to speak to Rue Bennett?
Or is she experiencing severe, trauma-induced religious psychosis from the stress of the cartel, the exhaustion, and the adrenaline dump of the crash?
It's giving Moses, but make it premium cable trauma. What do you think?
If we look at it through a critical analysis lens, it points towards something much darker than a spiritual awakening.
Darker than a burning bush.
If we look at the meta-narrative of the episode, earlier on the TV set, Lexi's friend Gilly explicitly states regarding the script, if someone doesn't die periodically, people get bored. That line was placed there by the writers for a very specific reason.
Oh, that is terrifying foreshadowing.
Exactly. Let's look at the evidence. We have the life flashing before her eyes moment in the car. We have the desperate pleas for redemption and a clean slate in the church.
We have the impossible, inescapable odds with the cartel and the DEA.
And now, a burning bush hallucination. Rue's storyline is flashing massive neon signs. Reviewers and Reddit theorists are largely in agreement. Rue is experiencing the final moments of clarity before the end.
The show is preparing us for her exit. She might not survive this season.
It's highly probable.
Oh my gosh, if Rue dies, I am not emotionally prepared for that reality. The internet will completely break. It is too much to handle.
It would be a cultural reset.
Okay, we need to take a deep breath, sip our spicy margaritas, and transition into our segments because we have to debate the absolute mess we just witnessed. Let's get into segment 1. Most emotionally unwell.
The competition is incredibly fierce this week. Almost everyone is a viable candidate.
It really is a race to the bottom. We have to debate who is spiraling the hardest, and honestly, I have to make a strong argument for Cassie.
Cassie over Jules. That's an interesting choice. Defend your thesis.
Hear me out. Cassie is completely dissociating on a professional television set.
True.
She is crying, screaming, and trauma dumping about getting a bloody nose on her wedding night to Hollywood producers she just met 10 minutes ago.
Also true.
Then she goes home, hyperventilates over her laptop, deletes her entire highly lucrative income stream without consulting a lawyer, and is immediately rewarded with a cardboard box containing her husband's severed finger and toe. It's a lot.
She is living in an actual, literal horror movie, and she still thinks she's the star of a rom-com. Her delusion is staggering. She is profoundly unwell.
I acknowledge Cassie's chaos, but her actions are driven by a desperate, albeit misguided survival instinct and a deeply ingrained desire for fame.
Okay.
Jules, on the other hand, is the epitome of emotional unwellness because she has actively, consciously chosen her own subjugation.
She chose the penthouse.
She is trapped in a sterile penthouse, entirely devoid of her former vibrant personality. When Rue confronts her with the reality of her situation, that she is merely a kept toy for a married man, Jules doesn't defend her choices rationally.
She slaps her.
She resorts to immediate physical violence. Slapping your ex-girlfriend across the face because she correctly identified your hollow existence is the definition of a psychological break. Jules is emotionally bankrupt. Okay, that is a devastating read. Jules is definitely emotionally bankrupt. But speaking of terrible behavior, let's move to segment 2. Biggest main character syndrome. Discussing which character behaves like the entire world revolves entirely around them.
I think we are entirely aligned on this one. There's only one correct answer.
We absolutely are. We both need to tear into Lexi Howard right now.
Lexi's behavior at the LA Night set was a masterclass in narcissistic opportunism.
It was actually disgusting. Cassie is having a legitimate trauma-induced psychological breakdown on set.
She is reliving the horrific night a cartel boss chopped off her husband's toe.
And Lexi is standing behind the monitors, rolling her eyes like it's an inconvenience. Then, the absolute second the producers show a hint of interest, Lexi weaponizes Cassie's deepest, darkest secrets.
She outs her sex work to strangers just to make herself look like the responsible, put-together savior sister.
And the true manifestation of main character syndrome is when Lexi completely ignores the reality of her sister's suffering to secure a job for herself.
Patty offers Lexi the gig to write Cassie's traumatic storyline, and Lexi takes it without a single second of hesitation.
She views her sister's lived, bleeding trauma merely as raw material for her own creative portfolio. She hijacked the worst moment of Cassie's life to get a writing credit.
She is a total parasite.
She literally cannot succeed in life without feeding off the drama of the people around her. It makes me so incredibly mad.
It's sociopathic.
Okay, let's lighten it up slightly for segment 3. Could we survive high school today? Because panicking about modern teenage life is my new favorite hobby.
After observing your niece at lunch, I am convinced the modern high school experience is a dystopian psychological experiment that I would fail immediately.
It is terrifying. Using my niece as a springboard, imagine having to navigate TikTok drama at 16 years old. If I wore a bad outfit in 2010, maybe 3 people in the cafeteria saw it, laughed, and we moved on.
Right.
If a teenager wears a bad outfit today, it's filmed in 4K, uploaded, set to a trending audio, and dissected by 2 million strangers in the span of an hour. The digital footprint is permanent.
The panopticon is real, and it is unforgiving. And it's not just avoiding embarrassment. It's the intense social media pressure to not just exist, but to have a fully realized, marketable brand.
A brand at 16.
When I was 16, my personal brand was owns a hoodie and likes bands. Now they need a cohesive visual aesthetic, a nuanced stance on complex geopolitical issues, a 12-step skincare routine that costs more than my monthly rent, and a monetizable skill set.
The skincare routines alone are bankrupting families.
The pressure to commodify their own youth is horrifying. I would absolutely not survive. I would have retreated to the woods and lived off berries.
I would have simply passed away from the stress. I could not handle the group chat politics and the constant surveillance. It is way too much.
Which leads us perfectly into our final segment, segment 4, AI versus humanity. Because if the teenagers don't destroy us with their TikToks, the robots definitely will.
We established our fear of the AI takeover earlier with the dentistry discussion. But let's apply this to the Euphoria universe. Which jobs in this chaotic universe will AI absolutely destroy first, and who is safe?
Oh, this is a fun game. Who is leaving the machine first?
Yes, tell me.
Well, statistically speaking, AI is currently excelling at mimicking creative writing, synthesizing tropes, and generating structural narratives.
Okay, so where does that leave us?
Therefore, I confidently hypothesize that a basic language model could write Lexi's plays significantly better than Lexi does.
Oh my gosh, the absolute shade.
It's just a factual observation based on data.
Yeah.
An AI could ingest the social dynamics of East Highland High and produce a much more nuanced, less passive-aggressive, structurally sound script than Lexi's narcissistic self-insert fanfiction.
Lexi is obsolete.
The robots are coming for her typewriter.
I am screaming. But you know what? AI could never, ever replicate the sheer, unhinged emotional damage of Cassie Howard.
That's very true.
Like, you cannot program a highly logical robot to hide in a bathtub for 3 days straight or to completely dissociate on a soap opera set because an actor said the word honeymoon.
The math wouldn't compute.
The human capacity for irrational self-sabotage and absolute messiness is our ultimate defense against the machines. Cassie is entirely safe.
Cassie's particular brand of self-destruction defies all algorithmic logic. The machines would literally short-circuit trying to predict her next move. In a weird way, her instability makes her irreplaceable.
Exactly. The robots could never be this messy. Wow, we have unpacked so much today. The psychological trauma, the 3D printed cartel keys, the Cartier heists, the burning bushes, the breach of contract.
It was an exceptionally dense session. The narrative threads are pulling very tight, and the tension is palpable as we approach the end of the season.
They really are. Snark Squad, thank you so much for hanging out, drinking with us, and surviving this absolute mess of a chat with us today. We love discussing this show with you.
Before we go, we need you to get in the comments right now and answer some questions for us. First, what is your absolute favorite spicy drink? Is pineapple the elite choice, or are we entirely wrong?
We also want to know your thoughts on the impending technological singularity. Do you think AI will take over cognitive labor? Or are we safe in our human messiness?
Let us know. And of course, the most important question, which Euphoria character is the absolute messiest this week? Is it Cassie, Jules, or Lexi? Drop your votes below.
And lastly, does high school today seem terrifying to you, or are we just old and fragile?
Probably a bit of both. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It genuinely helps the algorithm, which ironically is the very AI we were just criticizing, but we feed the machine anyway.
We love the algorithm when it pushes our content. Babes, stay chaotic, stay dramatic, and we will see you on the Snark side.